Welcome to the top of the month. We're back with another episode that got a little delayed earlier, and that's caused us to do kind of a format shift. And honestly, I'm hyped about it. I did a quick little episode about Over the Garden Wall as our previous episode because we had not yet been able to record both parts of this episode, which is about From Dusk Till Dawn, with my sister Kristin. And I did it all online so that you could see my face. And so now we're kind of gonna do a little bit of a half and half, where at the beginning and then again at the end with your trivia and outro, you'll see my face. But the actual guest part will still be just album art and us talking. As I get into next year, we'll have the guests be part of it as well with their faces. But we're still starting this out. And this is my sister's first ever podcast. So they would like to take it audio only first. Of course, if you're not familiar, we did From Dusk Till Dawn because it is a movie that was included in Movie Night Extravaganza's Vampire Month, and because my sister and I never saw it, although we did see half of it as children, and then we were told we could not continue to see the rest of it because it was too salacious. Did we like it? Did we not like it? Was it worth all the wait? You're going to have to wait just a smidge bit more to find out. As we get into part one, if you saw my previous episode about Over the Garden Wall, I give you a pretty good breakdown of how this show goes. And this is the intro bit. This is where I tell you about what's going on in my life and kind of do a little bit of promo so that you can stay up to date with everything. Of course, as always, if you want to really stay up to date, follow me on social media. I'm Movie Runtime on TikTok, and I'm Little Deadly Creature, although Movie Runtime will also bring you to Little Deadly Creature on Instagram. I'm Movie Runtime on YouTube as well. I'm trying to upload more shorts and stuff like this where you can see my face to YouTube. So do me a favor, if you're not subscribing to me on that particular platform, but maybe you are on the others, throw me a bone and subscribe over there and check out this episode where you can see my face as I talk to you from my office where I've just finished doing the wallpaper that I'm very proud of because my ADHD made it take way longer than it should have. Anyway, I deeply digress. Stuff I want to tell you about is that now that Vampire Month is over for Movie Night Extravaganza, we're moving into November and we've got a lot of really interesting and diverse stuff. It is not a theme month, but the theme is awesome. Awesome guests. The first one we've got coming on this Monday, because we're not going to be doing Tuesday this week because it's the election in the United States. So everybody's eyes are going to be on that, and ours are going to be as well. So you'll get us Monday of that week. That's the 4th. And we've got Harry Marks, who is a friend of mine that I met on TikTok. God, he does such great intros to classic movies, and he is so incredibly knowledgeable. He actually just did an intro for Nosferatu, which was played at the Nosferatu event in East Hampton, where my film, We Have Ghosts at Home, was part of a short horror film thing, and then a playing of Nosferatu as part of the East Hampton Film Festival, for which I am part of as well. Thanks to Chris Ferry for having that opportunity. You might have also seen me on Mass Appeal, the show on NBC in the mornings, with Chris talking about that event. Harry's intro for the movie was fantastic. He often says everything in such a succinct and clear and easy way to understand that, you could either hate him for how incredible he is, or you could just admire him. It's like a jealousy thing or an admiration thing. And I choose admiration. And I invite you to choose admiration and join us because we're going to do a Humphrey Bogart film called In a Lonely Place. And this is, I'm being told by the guys, different than most Bogart films. I haven't seen it yet. I'll be watching it this week. I'm sure that I am in for a good film because it is Harry's favorite Bogart film. It is also Conan's favorite Bogart film. And neither of these guys have ever led me wrong or astray, so join us for that. I'm sure we'll blow your minds again and again with the stuff that we come up with for that episode. After that, Lauren Chouinard, who you might know from our Green Inferno episode and many episodes of Movie Night Extravaganza, she's the Greta Gerwig correspondent, will be joining us to talk about Pearl. Now, Conan's going to be out on tour, so it's going to be Forrest, Christina, her, and I, and she's done a cosplay for every single character in the X trilogy, so I'm pretty excited. I couldn't think of a better person to talk to us about this particular film, and I'm so glad that she's available to do so. Now, I've been burying the lead here because what Movie Night Extravaganza has going on in November that is truly astounding is we've got another great director coming to talk to us. Now, we had Alex Cox come on and talk to us about his upcoming film, which was so exciting. Check it out. It's available on YouTube. But on the 15th of November, we will be having Adam McKay join us, and we're going to talk to him about his work and everything that goes into filmmaking and the stuff that is important to him, as well as what we really enjoy in his filmmaking. It's so freaking cool. You'll hear me chime off about that a lot on my social media just before that, but because this is the episode for the first and our next episode won't come out until the 15th, well, you won't really get too many more reminders if you're only listening to the website, only listening to the podcast. Anyway, check that out. And just one last plug before I go. I will be on the Goodwill Podcasting podcast. That's a really exciting podcast that I've just started listening to recently. Particularly their episode on Westerns got me super excited about so many concepts of filmmaking that go into that. Really encourage you to check them out, particularly because I will be on them soon. We're talking about Tom Hanks. We're talking specifically about Here, which is Robert Zemeckis, Robin Wright, and Tom Hanks coming together again, not since Forrest Gump, to make another movie. We're going to talk about that movie, Saving Private Ryan, Philadelphia, Road to Perdition, and then I'm adding into the mix League of Their Own. Now, you might think that's not really a Tom Hanks heavy movie, but it's a Tom Hanks important movie, and I want to use it to explain why I think it is crucial when you look at Tom Hanks as an actor to look at films like this. Now, I'm not going to tell you too much more than that because you want to find out more, tune into this show. Keep an ear out, keep an eye out. I will give that link to you. That's it for the top of the show. We're going to dive right on into it, and we're going to find out why I didn't watch From Dusk Till Dawn. The great story, everything about it. There's also an additional story because it was a two-parter. We watched a film just before we were denied watching all of this, and it was incredibly strange and incredibly violent, and we talk about not remembering what it is, and then in the second half, I do figure out what it was. So, tune in, stay in, and let's figure out, what if I don't like From Dusk Till Dawn? Welcome to episode 23 of What If I Don't Like It? I am joined by a very, very special guest today. I am joined by my sister, Kristin, and we're going to talk about a movie that neither of us have seen yet.
Hi.
Brass balls. I mean, I guess we'll talk about what we think it's going to be. Before we get into it entirely, I do want to give the audience a general idea of who you are as a film viewer and some stuff about you because you're new to the show.
Sure, yeah.
Normally, I ask what is your top four? Are you prepped for that, or do you want to go a little sideways? We could do another one.
I have put in a lot of thought to this because
Yes!
yeah. But doing this kind of thing is always really hard for me because I feel like movies belong in categories. So I've got like my top 3 comedies, the top 3 movies I watch when I need to like zone out. So just coming up with a general top 4 was pretty hard, but
Yeah.
I think I've got it. So I've got Silence of the Lambs.
Is this at the bottom or at the top? So we're going 4 to 1?
Oh, yeah, let's go. Well, yeah, sure. We'll go for, well, that's, I think they all just exist in a cloud of like top 4 movies for me.
Yeah, okay, legit. Some people arrange
Yeah,
their letterbox that way, and some people insist that it is in fact a 1, 2, 3, 4. So
I,
just an
I do not.
amalgam. All right. Silence of the Lamb. So why? Yeah.
It's a really good question. It's just like one of those movies that's like really stayed with me.
Hmm.
Especially thinking about like what we're talking about tonight, like movies we watched when we shouldn't have, and maybe like how was the line drawn with the movie we're gonna talk about, and yet we totally watched Silence of the Lambs. Like,
Yeah, right, like, right when it came out, probably, like, I do distinctly remember, and maybe I am exaggerating, but I remember our Blockbuster card having privileges where the person couldn't tell us not to get what we were getting.
That tracks.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was possible, but that would explain
And
a
mostly
lot.
because mom and dad were like, "Look, you guys are gonna take the walk down to Bell Boulevard and get everyone videos. I'm not coming with you. Get the clerk to fucking let you rent them."
Ah, but yeah, just a movie that I've seen so many times, so many good performances, such a fantastic story, just really captivating throughout. Great
Mhm.
movie.
Great
Mhm.
acting too. I mean, and that's one of the early horror movies. I mean, like, obviously, somebody's gonna jump in and be like, "Actually, this movie in night," one of the early horror movies that people think about that gets into the Academy Awards and gets, like, really credited. People will be like, "It's a psychological thriller," but
Mm,
it sets a tone that gets into what other people make horror movies for a while.
yeah, I think it really like personally set a stage for like a lot of the other media that I consumed, like a lot
Mm.
of the books I read, shows I watch, other movies. It really kind of like set a bar.
Was that before or after you got into the X-Files?
Probably gonna have to run some dates on that. What's Probably
Yeah,
about the same time, maybe a little after. So,
okay.
yeah, definitely had that FBI thing going, so checked some boxes for that weird middle school obsession.
Well, there was definitely a period in time where I you could have bet good money on either of us winding up as a forensic pathologist.
It seemed like the thing to do at the time.
Yeah, it seemed really
Like,
cool. Got to wear cool outfits, cool suits. People downplay the amount of horror you have to see, though.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, actually, you haven't seen Long Legs yet, right?
No, haven't seen Longlegs yet.
Okay. And influenced heavily by your film that you've just chosen.
Okay.
I won't
Yeah.
say anymore.
No, I still wanna see it, but I probably will wait for it to come out. For me to actually get to the theater,
Yeah,
it's hard
no,
fought, it's gotta be worth
it's
it.
gotta be on, like, streaming on HBO, you don't pay for it, and I almost wanna pay I would pay a movie theater ticket to watch you watch it.
Oh, man, sounds like a plan.
Just so that you could turn to me every 5 seconds and just see my face being gleefully pun dog, like, "Yeah, no, uh-huh, no, that's what they're gonna go. Yeah, that's what they've chosen. Yeah."
So sticking with it, that's what they decided to do. Oh.
Alright, so, next film.
So next one on my list is gotta be, figured it was gonna be one of the Lord of the Rings trilogies, thought real hard, and I'm gonna go with Fellowship.
Ooh.
Um, I know, controversial choice.
Yeah.
It does an amazing job of establishing the characters. It does stuff like makes like the Council of Elrond captivating. You've got the Balrog, right? And I just love the hobbits, and the hobbits are just such they are so well established in that first movie and everything. It's a movie I could like whenever we start a rewatch, I'm always the most excited about Fellowship. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So,
the other ones fall prey to some of the editing where, like, they had to make them shorter, and I feel like what got it edited out really was like, "Oh, no, I would have kept that and left this." But the first one, I
mhm,
feel I have no qualms with. It is
yeah.
exactly as I would have had it be.
Mhm, mhm. It was a hard choice. They're all really good. Saw The Fellowship 9 times in the movie theater. Went once for each member of the Fellowship. So, yeah.
Plus, you get the Sean Bean's death, and, like, there's a lot of deaths in the whole thing,
Taking the
but
little
that
ones.
I still cry, though. I still cry, though. How
Mhm.
does he get me every
So good.
fucking time?
So good.
He's
Mhm,
such a wonderful actor. Mm, mm.
mhm. Next one on my list, like, I'm not, like, a huge Star Wars fan. Like, I like the Star Wars movies, I appreciate them and everything.
Mhm.
Um, I love Rogue One. I
Ooh, yeah.
That always gonna be a top movie for me. The acting is phenomenal,
Mhm.
the emotion, and I just love how they just took this little story, this, like, one line that, like, a lot of good rebels gave their lives for that, and, like, fleshed it out into such a compelling, like, awesome story. Love the characters, like, love the actors, great movie, love that one.
Oh, yeah, that's a little controversial. There are some people in the fandom that wanna hate on that, and I think he did a really good job with the source material and creating a whole world out of it. I can't imagine the kind of limitations you have to be to still fit inside the box of what Lucas inside Disney wants out of you.
I love that they didn't, like, fall too much into, like, the needing to have, like, a romantic subplot trope,
Mhm.
like, it's just there's just so much about it is so good, like, I you got Riz Ahmed, you got, gosh, Diego Luna, Alan Tudyk does the voice of the robot of K2, it's just it's so good.
It really is. It's a very good cast that comes together, and I think it does some of the better storytelling in this. I am a Star Trekian, so whenever I try and wanna talk about Star Wars, I wanna be light about it. But, like, I do with,
Yeah,
of course, Andor coming in as well, where they're really starting to think about, like, well, it's a rebellion. So, like, let's not talk so much about people falling in love and, like, who's gonna be the queen of what, like, let's talk about the people who got ground up into all of this. And I find that fascinating.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just a lot of heart in that movie, I think, I really like it.
Fucking
Mhm.
A. Can't argue with that.
Yeah, yeah, just love the rebels. 4th movie was a really hard one for me. Like, I couldn't come up with another one, and like I was saying, like, movies exist in categories in my mind, and it was like, there's so many, like, horror movies that I've loved, or so many movies like Reservoir Dogs that we watched as a kid, or Trainspotting that we watched so many times that were just, like, outstanding movies. But, like, what I didn't have on this movie list was just, like, it's like a genre of movies that I just love because they're just hilarious and, like, wildly entertaining, and they're not good, but I could put it on at any point. And so I'm gonna put Blade 3 on my list. I know, I know, I know,
Yes,
super controversial. Not
yes.
a good movie, but, like, you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna have a good time. You're sitting down, you're like, I'm not here to watch a piece of film. I'm not here to be changed or moved. I'm here to hear Ryan Reynolds called someone a juggling thunder cunt and move on, you know? Just so that made my list.
And there's such a sense of, like, awareness in Wesley Snipes playing that character, which you see in
Yes,
him playing
yeah.
himself on Who We Are in the Shadows, the television show, that makes you feel like you're in on the joke. I have not yet seen that.
Have you seen the new, Deadpool and Wolverine? So the I don't how's your podcast on spoilers? I feel like this movie's been out for a little bit, right?
You can yeah, people know what's in that, I think, yeah.
Alright. Well, I don't wanna spoil you per se, is the thing, if you haven't seen it. I know you're not, like, a big MCU person, so, like, you might not see Deadpool and Wolverine.
I will see it when it is free for I will see it when you will see it in the same sort of fashion as Longlegs, even though that's a real harsh thing to say, but when it is
Fair enough.
free on a streaming
That's fair
service.
that's fair enough. Blade is in, Deadpool versus Wolverine.
See, that's not just a spoil, that's a thing that's gonna make me watch it sooner. Why were people hiding that from me?
Yes! So you wanna talk about, like, self-awareness, like, you need to it's worth it for that cameo alone, because Blade's coming back into the MCU, they're gonna bring him back in and everything, and I know these original Blade movies didn't really exist in the Marvel universe.
That was the Steven Dorff thing, where I was just like, "I like Steven Dorff, let's see what
Yeah.
this is about. Oh, this is great."
Did we see it in the theater? I feel like Nick took us to see it.
I think the very first one we did.
We saw one of the Blade movies in the theater.
Maybe. It's amazing how that saved that's the Katamari
Maybe.
Damacy of Marvel Studios. Like, if it didn't succeed, there wouldn't still be Marvel, and boy, did it succeed for its quirky ass
Mhm.
weirdness.
Gonna roll it up into the universe.
I do think of it as slightly better than, say, like, the Underworld ones. As much as I do like Bill Nighy, I kind of prefer Blade.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just a good time. Terrible movie, good time.
I've been doing Vampire Month on Movie Night Extravaganza, so I've gotten, like, full all flavors, all vampires. We recently rewatched Lost Boys, and,
Oh, classic.
the crew asked me what was the first time I saw Lost Boys, and I was like, I don't remember. I just know we always like,
That's like that's like, what was it like, when did you learn to ride a bike? I was like, I was too little to remember. Too little to remember when I first saw Lost Boys.
I felt like I was in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is Dead, and they're like, "What's the first thing you can remember?" And I was like, I no, I've lost it." Like, it was
Mhm.
almost a nihilistic question, like, "When does one first see Lost Boys?" Oh, that's great. These are wonderful choices. These are,
Mhm.
a little surprising. I'm always I mean, there's a cajillion possible answers that people could give to me, and I feel like I'm always surprised by the answers that they get, and it's basically just a list of movies I then get to go rewatch because 'cause I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, that was good."
Nice. Nice. Yeah. It's funny too because, like, I'll hear people say their lists and be like, "Oh, no, that was a good one."
"Oh, no, regrets."
Regrets.
I wonder what Nick will say when I ask him because I feel like he'll
Oh,
go deep. He'll go deep.
that he's gonna go real deep.
He
That's
might say s he might say Sniper just to
like,
fuck
he's
with
gonna say
me.
sniper just to fuck with you.
Oh, I should have him come on, we'll talk about that one.
Mhm.
But that kinda segues me into Sniper is a story I have told, I think, on other podcast episodes, but,
Mhm.
if not, that's a childhood movie torn into our brains for forever.
Yep.
And so
Mhm.
is From Dusk Till Dawn. Now, people
Yep.
have heard me tell brief versions of the story on both Movie Night Extravaganza and on this one. Why don't you tell your version of what you remember? Because I'm sure in the amount of time since it has happened.
So, I don't know where our parents were. Our parents didn't, like, go away frequently, but they were not home.
Mhm.
They were, like, not home. And we went to Blockbuster, and we took out 2 movies. And one of them was From Dusk Till Dawn, and I can't remember what the other movie was. Do you remember what the other movie was?
No, and I've been trying to remember what the other movie was, but I can't.
It was also something we should not have been watching. I am like I remember because we watched that movie first, and I wish I could remember, like, I wish you could go back and, like, I wish Blockbuster records were, like, on online somewhere, and you could, like, look up your card and be like, "Yes!" Because this would really fill in a big gap in this story because I particularly remember the first movie just being something we shouldn't have watched, and I can't remember what it was. We also got, like, 50 chocolate munchkins that night, like, we got one of those, we got, like, one of those, like, mega boxes of munchkins and, like, made them fill it only with chocolate ones. It might
Yep,
have been, like, a bucket,
yep,
right?
yep,
So we were, like
yep, no, this parses.
we were w watching movies we shouldn't have been watching and just like, housing chocolate munchkins. I remember I got sick from them later on. And we watched this first movie, and I wish I could remember what it was, but it was like it was violent, it was inappropriate for that age. And it was like, "Okay, great." We took a little break and we went to put on From Dusk Till Dawn. And we put it in, and I don't remember how far into the movie that this scene happens. It was because, like, I watched the trailer before this happened. I wanted to, like, remember a little bit about it because showed it to Andrew, my husband. He was like, "What movie are you watching?" I was like, "Oh, watch this trailer. I can't believe you don't know what I'm talking about." And I watched the trailer, and there's, like, a whole setup to this movie. So we must have watched a decent amount of it before it got to the scene where Cheech is standing on the steps of a strip club and apparently trying to entice people to frequent the establishment by screaming, "Pussy, pussy, pussy." And our older brother had the remote, and he just goes, "Boop, you guys can't watch this." And that was it. Like, we had to leave.
Yeah.
And he kept watching it.
Fucking part I remember the most. That wasn't like, "Oh, and we'll keep watching the kids tonight." It's like, "Go fuck off."
No, he kept watching it. We had to fuck off. So
Yeah.
that is what I remember from that story. That was the point where we were not to be watching it anymore. Never mind the fact that it was like a Tarantino movie about bloodthirsty vampires, and we had watched something before that we shouldn't have. Wish I could remember what. I feel like we need to go, like, and look at, like, what came out
Yes.
on video at that same time and what it might have been, because I just remember it being like, "You wanna fucking watch this? We just watched that one. What the hell? It's just Cheech saying pussy. Come on."
This is perfect for my ADHD obsession. I'm gonna do a deep dive. I'm gonna bother Nicholas,
Amazing.
I'm gonna pull a
Excellent.
list, and if I can't get an answer, I'm gonna come in part 2 with at least a list that we can go off of and see if it
That's
rings any
perfect.
bells.
Yes.
Because I do remember there was a movie first, and I just don't remember what it was. Do you remember how old
I
we were?
no.
It was the year the film came out, right?
It was when it came out, so when would that have been? It when it came out on video.
Yes, I say it came out in '96 and it comes out in video in '97, so that makes me whoa, that's not good. That makes me 12.
Yeah, I wanted to say 13 or 14. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's better than I thought, which was younger, but
Yeah.
still it's not ideal.
Well,
Um,
eh,
okay.
I really wanna know what we did watch though, so
It's probably something like Pumpkinhead 13.
no.
Event Horizon.
Oh my god.
I do love our family's obsession with giant buckets of the one type of food that we wanna eat. Not like
The
we all
chicken
have a little bit
nuggets.
of the not like we're all on the spectrum.
Do you remember the chicken nuggets on the road trip?
I am chasing that high every road
Oh
trip I
my god.
take.
That was the best. Just drove past that McDonald's. Go ahead, you tell it.
No, yeah, where I don't know, we were going to Florida and we drove past a McDonald's that had a sign that said, "Buckets of nuggets, 50 nuggets," and it was I don't some astronomically appropriate price for 50 nuggets at whatever time of
It was
human existence this
it
was.
was it was yeah.
We pulled over, got 2 buckets.
Yep, we did. Mhm. I remember slipping in and out of consciousness in the back of the car and just waking up and shoving cold chicken nuggets in my mouth and just being like, "This is the life."
We also had a tendency to take food to the extreme for a deal. Like, remember also the Russian roulette that became all of the frozen milks
Oh,
dad got?
the milk.
You would pop a milk out of the container, the fridge, and we were all, like, individual sized, you'd be like, "I don't know, it's frozen, it'll
They
take
fell
a
off a truck.
second."
They were school milks that fell off a truck, Katie.
"Shh, we knew a g Kristen, we knew a guy."
Well, it was like you
Oh
were gonna get it was like you were either gonna get spoiled milk or you were gonna get chocolate milk, and that, I can't believe there was a phase in my life where that was a risk I was willing to take, but boy, was there.
my god. Hindsight, it feels like it was 2 years of our lives that we did that, and it was probably, like, 3 weeks.
That's
'Cause
how
you know how
childhood
you are when you're a
was.
kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Man. Alright, alright. So, I did not really look into this too much. I don't know very much about the movie, but I did bother the people in my movie night group about this because Movie Night Extravaganza is doing a full-on episode on this movie this coming Tuesday. So,
Wow.
we're gonna record, then I'm gonna do another 2 hours talking about it.
That is a I feel like that is a deeper dive than I think this movie has ever gotten before by anyone.
Right, right? But I'm a huge Tarantino fan. I love
Absolutely.
vampires. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why didn't you go back and eventually watch it?
That's a really good question. Is a really good question. I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
don't
I
know.
guess, like, somewhere in the back of my mind, it was always like, "You gotta get Nick to say it's okay first.
You
We're still in
you can't
hold.
watch this.
He
I
didn't
was
release
told I
us."
couldn't watch.
Right? Like, I gotta go to my grave with this. Oh, man. And I asked them I said, "We made it to this point in the movie," and they said, "What do you remember?" And I say, "Literally nothing," and they started laughing because it's actually halfway through the movie
What?
that happens. The pussy, pussy, pussy part is halfway. I'm remembering it as, like, 3.5 minutes in.
Man, that explains why we were so pissed off. Like, we were in at that point.
It's a genre shift.
Yes.
So we watched the first half, which is one type of genre film, and then it becomes a
Ooh,
completely different genre film at the exact
ooh.
point where we were cut off of
Mm.
it.
I really thought this was just gonna be like a Tarantino's Blade 3. Like, it was gonna be just, like, George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino blowing up some vampires. But
There's
I can't believe it was halfway through the
there's no
movie.
vampires for the first fucking half.
Can we even say that we haven't seen it? Really? Like, it's like we've seen half of it.
Well, we've seen half of it, but I don't feel like it counts because neither one of us knew enough to be like, Yeah, we didn't
Mhm.
see the vampires. Yeah,
I mean, does it even get to dusk by then? Like,
like I don't know. I'll read the description.
okay.
I'll read the description from Wikipedia. We'll go with that one because it's right here in front of me. It is listed as a horror action. Okay, I was gonna say maybe Western.
Hmm.
On the run from a bank robbery that left several police officers dead, Seth Gecko, George Clooney, and his paranoid loose cannon brother, Richard Quentin Tarantino, they play brothers.
I wonder who's in charge of that casting.
Remember when we were kids and John Ruskin went up to us and was like, "Same mother or same father?" And we had to be like, "Both, John."
That's funny too because I was gonna comment that, like, this is gonna probably be one of the most confusing episodes of your podcast ever because we have the same voice. Like, how are you gonna convince people that this is not just you talking to yourself?
Spoiler alert! The twist in Act 3. Oh, man. Yeah, I did think about that when I was, going to record early getting this set up earlier. I was like, "Oh, shit, I'm gonna have to, like, pitch mine different in post effects and make me sound like this."
Oh.
Oh, yeah, no, tough shit, people, you just have to deal with it.
Mhm. Anyway,
Anyway, so
sorry.
these brothers from maybe the same mother and father
Maybe.
hightail it to the Mexican border, kidnapping preacher Harvey Keitel and his kids. What the fuck? This is still in the part before the vampires. Don't remember that.
What is this movie?
The criminals sneak across the border in the family's RV and hold up in a topless bar. Unfortunately, the bar also happens to be the home base for a gang of vampires, and the brothers and their hostages have to fight their way out.
A plus. I'm in love already. This is fantastic.
Okay, yeah, super hyped about it. Okay. So obviously Harvey Keitel is in it because it's a Tarantino movie, but I completely forgot. Oh, it's
Mhm.
actually directed by Robert Rodriguez. It's written by Rodriguez and Tarantino together.
Ooh, okay.
So
Alright.
it's like a blending of the 2. I wonder how much we can tell, like, if it's gonna feel like it's a good blend or if it's gonna feel like, "Oh, this is Tarantino and this is Rodriguez."
Yeah, fair.
That
Mhm.
explains the Mexican border part.
Mm.
Mm. How do you feel about Robert Rodriguez? Do you usually like his movies?
Refresh my memory, what other movies has he done?
He did El Mariachi, did that one in Grindhouse, and for some strange reason, he did Spy Kid 2.
That's right! Yes. I did like the one he did in Grindhouse for sure. But yeah, clearly not that familiar with his work, so
I can't say that he is gotta like, if you're gonna be doing all kinds of shit like that, like, alright, go all over the place. He did Machete too, and we produced, on,
Oh,
quite a
I
bit.
liked Machete.
I did like that too. Anyway, so I'm curious to see how they meld together, but I'm gonna pull up the cast list from Dusk Till Dawn, and we can kinda take a look at who's in it. Because sometimes I hate a movie because someone's in it.
Yeah, that's the other thing, 'cause it's like, I don't know what the "what if I don't like it" angle is gonna be on this one, so
Mm, mm. It's got Juliette Lewis in it.
Mhm.
She's not super bad. How do you feel? I kinda like
Yeah,
her. She can be hit or
no
miss.
strong feeling.
Obviously, it's got Salma Hayek in it. It's got that scene with the drinking off of her feet. While I have never seen this movie, that scene is used so much. I know that scene.
I don't know if I know that scene.
Oh, okay. That's the scene I'm the least looking forward to seeing because I don't like feet, but it is a Tarantino movie, and you know how his thing with
Yep.
feet is, so it's gonna be in there. Um, it's got Danny Trejo in it.
Yep.
Cool, cool. Cheech Marin, of course, because we already
Mhm.
said that. Ah, it's got Tom Savini in it,
Okay.
the special effects guy, and he's playing a character named Sex Machine. I'm curious to see where that
Right.
goes. And it's got John Hawkes, who plays a character from Deadwood. Not the main character, the secondary
Okay,
character. I usually
okay.
like
Mhm.
stuff. I think he's pretty cool. Is there, anything that you are worried about going into it?
Not necessarily, no. Like, this is not a
Okay.
movie I feel like I need to, like, do the "Does the dog die" on, like, it doesn't seem
Mhm,
like it's
mhm.
gonna be, like 'cause I enjoy horror, but there's definitely, like, a limit, and, like, I don't think
Mhm.
this is going to stay with me.
Fair.
So, yeah, I don't think so, no, I think it's just gonna be a romp, a wild romp.
Yeah, honestly, I think if I had to put a pin onto why I hadn't seen it until now, it's partly because, like, it's verboten, and it's partly because I kinda just expected it to be like, ugh, it's meh.
Yeah!
It's probably for guys who wanna see Salma Hayek's boobs and vampires at the same time. It's probably not that good.
Yeah, I think I agree, yeah. Mhm.
It's got 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb, it's got
Solid.
63 on Rotten Tomatoes, and everybody who I talk to about it is like, "Actually, it's kinda clever."
Okay. Alright.
Yeah, so I'm worried that it's going to be, like, a little bit more for a 13-year-old boy than myself,
Okay,
and
yeah.
I'll just roll my eyes a lot,
Mhm.
but also, it sounds so nuts that I'm kind of like, "Well, I don't think 13-year-old boys like anything that I just described."
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe there's a concern, like, if how, like, movies like this will hold up. What are we, like,
Mhm.
almost 30 years later? Like
I don't know, I mean, the great part for us is it's not a hold up, we didn't see it yet.
Well, I guess maybe not, like, hold up in terms of maybe that's not what I meant, but, like, watching a movie in the lens of, like, being someone that lives in 1996 versus being someone that lives in, like, 2024, being like, "What? That's not so funny anymore," or like, "Oh,
Mm.
people don't say that." Like, just, like, those cringy, like, kind of, um
Mm.
so I feel like the '90s was like a heyday for, like misogyny and homophobia and transphobia in movies, like, that was just all kinda like the low-hanging fruit for, like, plot development and comedic relief, so, like, maybe that is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid worry, actually. Because when I went back and watched So I Married an Axe Murderer
Oh.
with Scott for episode 1, like, it's still funny in places, but also there are points where you're like, "Ah, you shouldn't say that. That's actually not that funny.
Yep.
You shouldn't say
Mhm.
that." So, your brain kinda edits that stuff out, and we were
Mm.
talking about this in the There Will Be Blood episode. This is technically called presentism, when you
Interesting.
take something from the past and you wanna, like, look through it in the lens of just today versus the lens of when it came out, and I think both of those viewpoints are extremely interesting and necessary. I think it is impossible to just be like, "It came out in '96, so I'm not gonna bother to have it adhere to anything." No, then if that was the case, then why continue to have it be available to watch?
Mm.
Like, that's stupid,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Mhm.
Any, any final thoughts before we send ourselves off to try and watch this?
No, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool, cool. I am gonna bother Nick and try and get a list of the other films so that we can maybe at least narrow it down a little bit more.
I'm pumped for this investigation because I was racking my brain, I could not remember.
I want to try and find the least possibly appropriate film that it could have been. Like, is it gonna be the Diamana Galasa, the one that, like, fucked us up for years? The reason why we can't say what time it is? "What time is it?" Without, like, getting sweaty. Don't show that
Oh
to
my
children.
god.
Well, I'm excited to do this as well, and I have to anyway because I gotta do it for movie night extravaganza, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna
all
get
times.
2 birds out of this stone.
Nice. Nice.
Thank you for doing this with me, and I hope I'm not sentencing us to it, like, oh god, how long is this movie?
It can't be that long. I'm gonna guess 90 minutes.
Oh, yeah, god, please, please. Oh god. An hour and 48 minutes, okay.
Oh, so close.
Okay, okay. I mean, but, like, Long Legs is, like, 2.5 hours. Like,
Oh.
I have been punished this year.
Oh, no.
Well, we'll get back in it, and, when our voices come back to you listeners, we will have been blessed with finally seeing this.
The other side of Cheech's pussy, pussy, pussy.
I find that with stuff like this when I'm, like, hot, under the colander about it, that
Seriously.
I'll start talking before we hit record, and I'll miss good stuff.
Exactly, exactly.
So, we are back. We have now officially seen this movie, and I know what movie we watched before this movie when we were children.
Okay.
I think that's a perfect place to start because it really frames it in a kind of way that I find particularly hilarious because I didn't remember this, although I do remember the movie and have watched it many times since,
Okay,
and your description of it, very accurate.
okay.
So I found a list for people who are interested. I'll include this in the stuff. It's a fandom list of all of the 1996 home video releases in the United
Alright,
States
alright.
and their release date.
Okay.
And then I figured out how long Blockbuster will keep the word new on a thing, which
Gotta
gave
have
us a
that new
window.
sticker on it.
And then I talked to Nicholas a little bit,
Okay.
who who I will admit, I said to him, "We watched this as 2 movies. What was the movie first?" And this son of a bitch said Sniper
Motherfucker.
without even hesitating. Like,
No.
I barely saw the as long as it takes to type the word sniper. He go, "It was Sniper."
He they're at his funeral, they're gonna play a video obituary, and it's gonna be, like, a couple minutes serious, and then it's gonna be Sniper.
It's gonna cut to fucking Sniper.
It's just gonna fade to Sniper, fade to Sniper.
Just the beginning part too, because it's like you're not sure because it has that aerial shot of the jungle, and you're like, "Could this
Oh, no, is
be Oh
this
god, please no. Oh
oh
no,
god,
why do we
and it's
always catch it right when it's
always
starting?"
on, and it's always the beginning. Okay. Anyway, okay, so he
Anyway,
said Sniper.
he said
Wasn't
Sniper. And I thought it could have been Prophecy, which also came out that year, but
Oh, we were into those. We watched those with mom and dad, though. That was a family affair.
I did confirm that mom saw that with us, and that's how I knew
We
it wasn't
watched all of
Prophecy.
those together.
Yes.
Mhm.
Good stuff. And those also came out in February of the year.
Okay.
This is a very popular year. February of that year is also the year that Dad ruins Usual Suspects for me because
Oh,
it hits
man,
VOD
I
there.
remember that.
And I have a confirmation on the year or how old we are because it is not 1997, it's 1996 and it's the summer. So it's like roughly August, September.
Okay.
I am only 11 by 4 months.
Yeah, and I
And
am not I'm 12, turning 13 in a couple months.
so keep that in mind when I
11
tell
and
you
12, 11 and 12.
when I tell you the movie we watched without any problem at all was 12 Monkeys.
Sounds alright then.
The dystopian, violent. And you know why? Because we were such fucking film nerds, we grabbed a Tarantino and a Gilliam
We do.
film at age
Oh,
11 and 13.
oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
But that being
Yep.
said, I think that would have been a better watch for me. I think I might have enjoyed this more if I had seen 12 Monkeys first.
Honestly, maybe a 12 Monkeys palate cleanser afterwards, it made would've made the experience better. So did Nick confirm that it was 12 Monkeys, or was he, like, not so sure?
He is not entirely positive, but he does say that that feels like it could have been the movie.
Yeah,
He's like,
that
I
sounds
can't
like
remember exactly what movie it is, but he's like, "Yo, no, that makes sense. I remember watching it with you guys. I remember the movie being kind of violent."
Did he remember the thing with, From Dusk Till Dawn, from turning it off, or
Without any hesitation. He even remembers exactly how many pussies there were. He's like, "2, and then I shut it off."
There's so many more pussies after that too! Oh my
That
gosh!
is my favorite thing that I realize is that, like, he made the best choice of his life there because it
Oh,
just gets
oh,
worse for, like, 45 seconds.
he spared us an experience. Oh my gosh.
And it gets qualifying too, like, it tells you what kinds of pussies as
Yeah,
well, and
the
by the
attention
end, you're
to
just like, "No,
detail.
thank you, sir. I
Attention
appreciate
to
the
detail
offer."
no one needs.
But, no. So, yeah, I mean, I guess 12 Monkeys was violent and contextually sad, but it was a very good movie. This
Excellent
movie
movie.
and, what I cannot confirm from him or my own memory, perhaps you can, but I can confirm from the VOD box. It is notorious that this does not contain any reference to vampires on the outside of the movie sleeve, and that if you rented it when it came out, you would not know.
Really? See, like,
Yes.
I feel like that would have been better. Like, I feel like then at least the novelty of feeling like you're going in watching this, like, kind of extreme, like, of mice and men-ish, like, gritty crime drama thing with Tarantino and Clooney, and then all of a sudden it's like I can't even just I've had fever dreams of better plot development than the second half of that movie. It's like it's you can't even call it camp, but, like, at least if it's, like, a surprise, then you're tied up in the you could be tied up in that novelty for 45 minutes, knowing it's coming, looking forward to it. It was an experience.
If I had to pinpoint exactly why this movie did not hit for me and did hit for the rest of the movie night extravaganza crew, it would be that exact fact. They all
Mhm.
got to see it
Ah.
without knowing.
Mhm.
I actually am removing myself from tomorrow's show. I can't be
Are you?
part of it.
Really?
I can't I'll just harsh the vibe. I don't wanna say anything super negative about this, but I don't like, the show isn't about why I didn't like it, that's this show.
True,
So,
true, very true.
I'm gonna beg off and let those guys just love on it a lot. I also found out something about the making of this movie that made me really fucking upset.
Oh, no.
So, we're talking about this movie that's 2 separate movies,
Yeah.
and at the back end, there's a lot of special effects. This movie cost $19,000,000 to
Wait,
make,
what?
which is
What?
incredibly high for a Tarantino budget as well. Like, Reservoir Dogs is
19?
1,200,000, Pulp Fiction, I think, is somewhere in 8.9 million.
I can't even wrap my mind around the decisions that were made that led to that.
And that's why in the back end, there is only 6 actors in vampire makeup. That's all they could afford. They keep reusing them, and they do a little bit of CGI multiplication. They also had to cut the length of the back end because they were getting in trouble with the censors. Okay, so all of that is true.
It feels super cut. It feels super cut up. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely feels like whatever the well, they also did a thing where they had just enough budget for the special effects that every single scene that they shot, they had to use because they couldn't afford to cut anything. Also, there's a filming style that Rodriguez does that he kind of coined in mariachi, because of the low budget. He himself actually is the cinematographer operating the camera, and he'll do a shot and zoom in on the take. So the actor's talking, they do the zoom, and they'll cut. They won't use the zoom part, but it'll look like he has a close camera and a far camera, and that's why a lot of the back end has, like, quick people's faces.
Okay.
It's like all they could afford, they couldn't do multiple takes, like,
But
the
they had $19,000,000.
I know they built the titty twister themselves, and then they accidentally burnt it down.
What?
I
What? I mean,
know.
there was just so many like, if you're gonna have Salma Hayek in a movie, 80% of her screen time was that dance. And then you think like, "Oh, this is gonna be the big bad guy that they're gonna have to fight," and then she dies, like, just, like, immediately. Like, immediately. They kill off everybody. They kill off Danny Trejo, they kill off everybody. The only one who lives is a sex machine to turn into a rat for no
For
reason
no
that I could
reason.
discern. How much did that cost?
I know, and when you start to go into the back end of why everything is done, you're like, "Oh my god, okay,
Really?
okay, 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 okay," but that doesn't make a good fucking movie, guys.
No.
So what really got me mad is we're talking about a $19,000,000 budget. And I'm ashamed that I didn't know this about Tarantino because I like him. Tarantino is very anti crew union, IATSE. So he'll hire
Mm,
SAG. He himself is not in the Writers Guild. He doesn't believe in it, but he won't go IATSE.
okay.
Pulp Fiction was not filmed with a union crew, and this was not filmed with a
Hmm,
union crew. They said it would
okay.
cost an extra $300,000 to do so, which is a pittance in a $19,000,000 budget, and
Alright.
and they paid George Clooney $250,000 to do this.
Oh my gosh.
Couldn't figure out where to find some money, guys? Like, so I'm very mad about this being shot the way that it was and also ending up like
This there's so many questions I don't even want the answer to.
So, I think we can I guess let's kind of approach it chronologically would be the best way to work
Alright.
through the film because there's almost every single
We're gonna
question.
process our trauma real time.
Exactly. Well, the best way to answer a lot of the questions is to come back to like, "Oh, it was a reference. Oh, it was a reference.
Oh,
Oh, it was a reference." And I maybe my movie friends are like super into this kind of shit that they're referencing and that's why they got it, but almost all of this shit went past me.
which is saying a lot because, I mean, if it's a horror movie and you're making references and they're flying over both our heads, it's like,
It's because it wasn't horror references, they were Pulp Fiction references
"Oh,
and
okay."
references to their own earlier work.
It did feel masturbatory. I will tell you that the whole thing had that air to it.
You know, that is a really you're so incredibly apt to say that because I when we get to the back end of the movie, it really felt like these guys are having a ball. I'm so glad they're having a great time.
Like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you."
I'm so happy for you. The big scene, the scene with Salma Hayek, the scene that everybody talks about, the scene you're supposed to watch this movie for, where he
Was
drinks off of her fucking foot.
literally, yeah. Mhm.
Oh, it's fun to watch a scene that obviously got put in there because the guy who wrote it, who put himself in the movie, wanted
Wanted
that to happen to
to
him,
do that.
and I
Yeah,
have to sit here and fucking watch this.
that felt gross to watch. And it wouldn't, you know what? It wouldn't have felt like it could have been a thing if you didn't know Tarantino's thing with feet and that he was the one pulling the levers. That just made it feel like I don't need to watch this guy's fantasy. Like that he paid this actress like no thanks.
So, I have a friend who asks a question, and this is my friend who is always asking, like, he is morally chaotic. He likes to ask questions that make people uncomfortable,
Oh,
and his
lovely.
question is like, "Do you think that pornography should be legal?" And a lot of people or sex work should be legal, and people will be like, "No." "Do you think pornography should be legal?" "Yes." "Okay. So what if I hire a hooker to fuck me and I tape it?"
Mhm.
And that's kind of the feeling that this has, where,
Yeah.
like, you couldn't technically just pay someone to do this, you had to pay people to do it and film it.
I mean, you could pay someone to do that.
Well, here's the thing, so Salma Hayek comes into their lives, Rodriguez and Tarantino, in a film that I think we both like, Four Rooms?
Oh, yeah. I mean, some rooms are better than others, but for sure. Yeah.
This
Mhm.
is true of life.
Yes.
Um, they needed somebody to play a stripper in the scene that has a stripper, and you might not even know she's in the movie because they don't show her face. And they put out a call and they're like, "Shit, we're filming it today. Would anybody be willing to do this? We won't show your face and you don't have to get nude." And she was like, "Sure." She answered the call. She was so polite and they were so nice. She's like, "Hey, if you ever need somebody again, call me."
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
call her for this and she says, "Straight fucking no, guys. Dumb. Don't
Yeah.
wanna do this." And
Mhm.
then Tarantino manipulates her because
I
he
heard this.
knows that she is jealous of Madonna.
I heard this, yeah. Because I
Yeah,
looked it up, I was like, "Why was she in this?"
and he convinces her, even to the point where she is afraid of snakes, and they
Yeah,
have
she went
only
to
s
therapy
for 2 months to do that, and
to
it's not
do that.
choreographed, it's just her fucking dancing, and the song she's dancing to isn't even the song they played.
That makes sense too, because it was so weird. It was so weird. There was no music for a good while,
Yeah.
and it's like,
It
what
was
is
supposed
happening?
to be a different song, and they wound up going with that because it's a famous band, Tito and Tarantula, and Robert
Mhm.
Rodriguez makes his cameo by being a part of the band, and the drummer from Oingo Boingo is also the drummer in that. So it's like, "Oh, okay, we got the famous Mexican band that."
Once again, I'm so happy for you.
But I have done scenes like this. I've done scenes like the whole bar scene, and you
Mhm.
can 100% tell the shuffling, dead, no music that everyone is fucking dancing to because not a single lady is dancing to the same beat by
Yeah,
any means.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Just the more I learn, the more baffled I become. $19 million. Salma Hayek went through therapy to get over a fear of snakes for this?
For this, I'll also throw this down. The cast contains 2 Oscar winners, Tarantino
Mm,
and Clooney, and 4 Oscar nominees, Keitel, Juliette Lewis, Salma Hayek, and John Hawkes.
mhm.
Like, how did we want how and, like, we only get John Hawkes just for the beginning, and I do think his scene is really good, and here's the thing, and this is probably why we were both so fucking mad when we were told we had to stop watching it, is because the first half of this movie is very Tarantino-y, it's got a
Yes.
bank robber, "So what's
Yeah.
gonna happen? Let's fucking go," and I'm, like, into it.
Irredeemable protagonists, like, these guys are awful. Like, holy crap! Tarantino's character is pathological. I am compelled.
And, like, there's this question, and they try to make it this story about, like, if your brother was a monster, would you be able to stop him? And, like, it's only a part of the story for the last 10 minutes, so don't even pretend like it is. And they even give everybody biblical names, like, his name is Seth, and Seth in the Bible is the 3rd child of Adam and Eve who gets bit by a beast, but manages to kill it anyway. Go somewhere with that, though.
Mm,
So yeah, so like Harvey Keitel and Juliette Lewis and the tension and all of that leading up the scene with the border guards. That's a
yeah,
pretty good scene.
yeah.
Ugh, I don't know. I also have notes for who some other casting options because we
Okay.
paid $250,000 to get George Clooney, and in interviews I read that they wanted George Clooney because he was on ER at the time, and they thought it would be funny for him to go from somebody who saves lives to somebody who takes lives.
Oh,
Like, I'm having trouble saying that with a straight face.
I
But
know, right?
other choices at certain times were Antonio Banderas, which makes sense because Robert
Sure.
Rodriguez.
Yeah, mhm.
Tim Roth
Of
makes
course.
sense.
It's a natural, the Tarantino movie, yep.
Mhm. Michael Madsen also makes sense. Those are both Reservoir Dogs people.
Mhm.
Christopher Walken. Would've would've liked that.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro, probably would've hated that more.
Yeah.
James Woods would have been interesting, and here's where it starts to get like, "You mother son of a bitch, why didn't you?" Because Steve Buscemi and Jeff Goldblum were both options.
Buscemi that would have been a different movie entirely. Oh,
All of them
man.
had to pass because of scheduling conflicts. The only one who
Mhm.
said straight up fucking no, that's dumb, is John Travolta, and he traded it for Pulp Fiction. He's like, I will do whatever you do next, but I won't do this."
Alright. Alright, well, that worked out the best.
And they even for a while, they have a whole pilot shot with somebody else, um,
Mm,
Joseph Pilato, who is like a famous person from Dawn of the Dead and, Day of the Dead.
okay.
But, you know, he's, like, much older. It just wouldn't we don't think it would have really hit for anyone.
Mm.
But God, I would have loved Buscemi. Yeah, I would have loved Goldblum. How much
Well, yeah.
funnier would it have been with Goldblum?
It would have been and that's the other thing about the second half of the movie. They tried to make it a horror comedy. None of the laughs landed. Like, yeah,
What do you think of the line that Clooney gives to Salma
I
Hayek?
know exactly what you're gonna say, which one, that I already had a wife,
Mhm.
like, ching.
Yeah. He says, "Get ready to spend the rest of your life as a slave," and he goes, "I already had a wife." What would you do if I told you that that line was ad-libbed by
No,
Clooney
I knew
and
it was
and they tried to cut it,
ad-libbed.
but it got included in a trailer because executives liked it, and then they had to put it in the final cut.
Boy. Mm.
It's like Catskills level comedian bullshit.
For real
You paid $250,000 to get that. Congratulations,
get
guys.
that
Got every damn
experience.
fucking penny's worth. And, like, this film has a lot of that problem where there are so many people who should've, but then didn't, but kind of were, and then wouldn't. In
Mhm.
fact, like, I'm gonna get the director's list because it wasn't supposed to be so he this is a fact that drives me insane because I can't quite understand how it works. It must be because this is the first one he's paid to write. This is technically the first script that Quentin Tarantino is paid to write, but it's after Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and a lot of other scripts. So he writes those scripts and he makes them into his own movies. I So this is, like, the first. He's paid
Okay.
$1,200.
To write this.
Yes. Again, like, it's I guess that was worth what it was. And he was supposed to direct it, but he didn't because he wanted to focus on his acting. So, at one point in time, Rennie Harlin and Tony Scott were like, "Oh, I could direct this," and then and they looked at the script and were like, "No, thank you." Can you imagine if Tony Scott directed this?
Yeah. It's like, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
I mean, we're remaking so many things. We could remake this movie.
Did you see that it's a TV show? It's like a Spanish TV series too. I think I saw when I looked it up after the fact.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, and it's also got a sequel with none of the main characters.
Interesting.
It's just another people go to the same bar. It's still bad there.
Doesn't it blow up?
But just they pull away and you see how big it is,
Oh,
the
yeah. It's all like
Mesopotamian
on
map.
like was that supposed to be like Aztec ruins or something like that? Are we to believe?
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. So what's your feeling about the way the vampires are in this? Because they're like maybe Mesopotamian, maybe gods, maybe snakes, maybe bats, maybe
I
aliens?
don't think that anybody gave it any thought enough to, like, in retrospect, be trying to make sense of it. They were mushy, and, like, there was, like, sometimes they had vampire faces, like, one would change, one would go through the whole big, like, morphing, like, CG effects thing, and then in the next scene, they'd just have teeth. And then like, I'm not even saying, like, a scene change, it was just, like, a camera change. In the next camera angle, they just have teeth, and then in the next camera angle can't make sense out of these monsters. There is no why did Sex Machine turn into a rat?
I know. And like they even try to make it part of the plot to explain the inconsistencies to be like, not every vampire dies the same way, and they're really mushy.
I don't
I love
that
that
whole
they told us that they were mushy because part of me was like, you didn't even sharpen that chair leg. You're just jamming a square peg on that.
what table legs. That whole conversation was just painful exposition that nobody needed at that point. Like, you've already gone so far. Please just stop trying to explain things.
So when I tell you why, you're gonna
Mhm.
get a little mad
Oh no.
because it goes a little deep. So this film was written by Quentin Tarantino to highlight a special effects company called KNB, who is headed by Greg Nicotero, who did the special effects on this.
Okay.
And it was part of a deal that he said, if I do this for you guys, will you do the special effects for Reservoir Dogs for free? And they said
Mm,
yes. So the
okay.
scene cut, like the ear cutting and all the blood and all of that was like, this movie has to exist or we don't get Reservoir Dogs.
Okay.
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 Okay. That's the same guy who did, The Walking Dead. He's the reason the zombies are squishy in Walking Dead.
Why? You know what? I'll tell you what. I could believe squishy zombies.
Yeah, yeah.
I did not question the squishy zombies. And like even you said it. I knew the zombies were squishy in Walking Dead, but it never was a point of contention for me. Vampires, mythologically, there's no precedent for them to be squishy. They even go through the trouble of saying that they have superhuman strength. With what?
With
With
their squishy bodies, Kristen!
things made of jello?
With their little squishy bodies.
But this is what I'm saying. You cannot. It's nobody thought about this. we should not be thinking about this 30 years later.
I know, we were almost given a mitzvah from God by having not seen this.
We were almost spared.
I like and then, of course, like, Fred Williamson, the famous actor from MASH, the big black guy who turns into a
Mm,
zombie eventually, and he turns into a very bat type of zombie. Like,
with, like, side mouth? I don't
bit
get it.
a bit vampire, like, a minute. The father gets bit, and then he's like, "So I've got, like, almost an hour or so." You're
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
"Why?"
I feel like that's a genre trope though, that, like, like like a zombie bite will be like an instantaneous turn, and then a main character will have like a day and a half. That's that's a genre trope that I'm willing to accept. If I'm watching something campy and like a B horror movie, like,
Mhm.
I'm all right. The plot needed that, but
Okay.
mhm,
When I was recently talking about Ravenous,
mhm,
people kept wanting to say that Ravenous is a vampire movie because of the way that it handled blood and the consumption of souls, and I differ. I
I
disagreed on air a
I
lot about
disagree with
that.
it too. That's a cannibal Wendigo movie. Yeah.
With this, and when I found out that the special effects guy was the guy who's won Emmys for Walking Dead,
Yeah.
and Scott even said it while we were watching, he goes, "Wow, these are some Walking Dead vampires."
Vampires.
These vampires are a lot more zombie than like, they don't bite and suck at the neck, you're seeing, like, arm wounds where
Yeah, they were consuming. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and, like, they 4 or 5 of them would get on somebody at once, like, felt more like a zombie, especially when the son was killed.
Yes, yeah, that scene, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
As far as the entirety of Tom Savini's character, bless his heart, so many decisions were made based on, like, "That's cool, and I like that." Like, his whole crotch gun thing is a reference to Desperado, in which they
Yeah,
find that gun not on a human being. We've seen that gun before, and now we're meeting
mhm,
the guy who's wearing that gun, so that's cool for fans of Desperado.
sure.
Sure. Tom Savini himself is very good with a whip, so that's why he
By all
uses a
means.
whip.
Mhm.
Oh, it's also a reference to a character, a vampire hunter in a, like, old movie. He uses
Okay,
the whip. But,
okay.
like, why he turns into a rat? Because they could. Because they could.
'Cause they could,
'Cause
'cause
they could.
no one told them no.
No one told him no. He's so out of control in the scenes where he's fighting with people. The DVD, they have people talking about how many people he hit. He actually punched George Clooney, like, none of that was staged. He was just hitting people. Like, that's the chaotic energy of the back end where you're like, "Oh, yeah, we won't even go union. We'll just have the actors fight each other
Just
for real."
the actors punch each other.
It's good, it's good, it's fine.
And,
Ah,
like, all of that, like, ostensibly, on paper, I'm here for it. Like, it goes I mean, Blade 3 made my top 4. Like,
mhm.
I'm here for a gory, campy, good fight choreography, like, the plot doesn't need to be watertight if I'm just here for a good time. This just it fell so short. Like, I cannot encapsulate, like, just the decisions that were made.
Yeah. I don't I don't know why there was the decision to do the two-part, to have it be a bank robbery at the beginning and then have a tease at the end. It doesn't feel like it's a palate cleanser, it doesn't feel like it juxtaposes in a meaningful way. D I
Well, I think what you said before, I think if you go in not knowing, then I feel like it's a very different experience.
Mm.
I feel like you're so, like, floored by that left hook out of nowhere that you're just kind of like, "Oh, this is wild. This is hilarious. This is insane." And, like, knowing it was coming, there were just, like, I just got hung up on so much. Like, Keitel's character, like, when he had that, like, crisis of faith, like, and Clooney was, like, confronting him about it and being like, "Are you a, whatever, a bad motherfucking man of God," right?
Yeah.
And he just instantly was like, "You know what? I am a bad motherfucking man of God." Like, in any other movie with this kind of plot, you would wait. You would wait for that, to let him deliver that line in that in a intense extreme moment, like even like right before he made the shotgun cross thing. But it just all felt like nobody was really giving it much thought,
Mhm.
and they were just like, we're just gonna do some gross shit.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like there wasn't even the character development needed to be sad when people died.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely. I mean, the characters weren't even sad when people died. Like like at the end, what like she was just like, "Yeah, my whole family's dead. Can I come with you, Cooney?" She like she literally was just like, "How about that?" And then pulled off in her RV. And like in the first half of the movie, like that family was important to that character.
Yeah,
Like that family was tight. Like
yeah.
and it was like literally like they're even in the second half when the father was confronting them, like if I turn when I turn, you gotta kill me right away, and they were hesitating and so torn about it. She literally just rolled off like someone got her order wrong at McDonald's. Like
I know. The ending is so fucking bad that that's the kiss that you get sent off on, that's the reason that this movie can't be more than 2 stars, 2.5 stars, if I'm being polite for me,
mhm,
because
mhm.
everyone that she's ever cared about is dead.
Yep.
Just dead. She has an RV. Can she drive an RV? We don't fucking know. It doesn't fucking matter.
Does she have that class 2 license to be a trucker? Well, it doesn't seem like it.
Doesn't seem like it. We don't even really know how old she is.
Yeah.
She didn't just have her family die, she had them die violently in front of herself. She now knows vampires exist in a world where prior she did not.
Mhm.
This guy, she asks Clooney if she can go with him, and he's like, "No, bitch." And then
Mhm.
she just turns around and she's like, "That's death."
Yep. Yep.
Like, she might as well have froze and punched this guy.
Yeah, for real. So, it's funny because again, if you're watching a movie that's just camp B movie,
Mhm.
like and everyone they love dies at the end and they're just like, "Well, walk off into this," you can let it slide off your back. You're like, "All right, I was here for a good time. I'm okay with it. I'm not gonna nitpick." I feel like the first half of this movie invites you to nitpick the second half.
Yes,
Like
it does.
and it's frustrating because like I'm a fan of Tarantino. I'm a fan of campy, gory horror movies.
Same.
And you put chocolate in my peanut butter and it tastes like shit.
Yeah. Like, how did you manage to fuck the ratio of chocolate to there is a chocolate to peanut butter ratio that doesn't work, I guess. Like, oh, and, like, even the cinematography was brilliant in the first half and dumb as
Mhm.
fuck in the second half.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that scene when Seth, Clooney's character, comes back and, his brother has killed the woman that they had kidnapped. So they're in the
Yes.
hotel, and he's
Yeah.
watching, and it's just interstitial flash, flash,
Yes.
flash, and it
Yeah.
gets killed by the fact that they do a turnaround and you see her body on the bed. They shouldn't have done that turnaround. I think
Yeah.
that really hit it. But that was a moment of brilliance that really invites you to wonder where the fuck that went for the rest of the goddamn hour and 30 minutes because it's in
For
the first 20.
real. For real. If they had carried that kind of filmmaking through to the second half, even if it was a slapstick horror gore fest, this would have been a 5-star movie. This would have been a great movie.
Yeah. Do you know, so let's focus in on that. What is missing from camp we like versus camp we don't like? And I think
Mm,
what we're saying right here is cinematography.
yeah.
You still have to be showing me that you're intelligent enough that you've made the decision to do camp. It's not just you don't have the money to do what you want.
Mm. I feel like camp doesn't need to have, like I said, like a watertight plot. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't need to have like brilliant character development, but it it doesn't even need to always make sense, but there's just something about the way that this didn't make sense that was just so frustrating. Like
Mm.
like there was no boss fight. Or like the
Mm.
boss fight like was just like this quick Salma Hayek thing. And there kept just being these huge like moments that were supposed to be the like denouement, like, oh, this is a climactic moment, and it was just over. Like Tarantino got bit and turned, and then it was just over.
Mhm.
It was like there was nothing was allowed to stew at all. Nothing was allowed to develop into anything that was gonna create any buy-in, create any tension. Like,
Yeah. Absolutely. There was no, like, investment in anything. It was just like, "Cool, next thing, cool, next thing,
yes,
cool, next thing."
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I thought the movie ended, like, 6 times before it actually ended. It
yeah.
was only an hour and 48, and I kept and that made
Oh,
it feel
deal.
so much longer because I kept being like, "Jesus, is it fucking over yet?"
I paused it to go get a snack after Salma Hayek's character died, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? How much of this movie is still left?"
I know. It's so funny. I paused it at the exact time it got to the pussies because I was like, here," and that is an
Mhm,
hour and 1 minute, and
mhm.
I have to say, smooth, smooth as ice. Well, hour I was like, "Oh, wow, it's already an hour? Okay."
Yeah,
The
yeah.
next 48 minutes felt like 3 hours.
Mhm, mhm.
Like, oh god. And the scene when they do that to Tarantino's character and he comes back and it's supposed to be heavy because, like I said, this is the metaphor center of the film. Could he kill the monster that was his own brother?
The Mice and Men vibes were so strong, so strong.
So strong.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that could have been like, hey, what a great idea. Take Mice of Men and skin a vampire story on top of it. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's hear it. I mean, Lost Boys is just take Peter Pan and put vampires in it. They say it themselves,
yeah.
but it doesn't like
Doesn't
even
land.
I could even excuse bad special effects in camp if it's like you have to give me one thing. The quality of effects can't also be bad, and then the story is bad, and then the acting is bad, and then the reasons are bad. And like his
Yeah,
forehead, how could they not make people into vampires without making their foreheads like 12 times as big?
right.
And Tarantino's not a great person to start with if you're gonna make a bigger forehead. So I'm like, "Oh no, your vampire brother looks really weird, man." I mean,
I
like, no,
can't
take it seriously, but like, oh man, what's going on?
I can't wrap my mind around the budget and what I experienced visually.
I would have said to like, don't you could have done so much better if you cast literally no one to spend
Mm,
Clooney's budget. Clooney's just the cost of having him in there on anything else.
yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
that's just $16 million. Let's put this in perspective. Like, that's 5 Reservoir Dogs.
You know what though? The whole pill is going down a lot easier with the you had to have this to get Reservoir Dogs. Like,
Oh, yeah? Well, there's a second side to that knife, Kristen,
oh no, oh no.
because hold on, make sure I get the director's name right.
Oh no.
This is the film that inspired Joel Schumacher to cast George Clooney in Batman and Robin.
Oh gosh.
So, if this film didn't exist, we wouldn't have gotten Travolta in Pulp Fiction because this pushes him into that role.
Sure, yeah.
If this movie didn't exist, we wouldn't have been able to do Reservoir Dogs because they wouldn't have had the special effects that they
Special
but
effects. But we got this film, and then we got that.
do you feel like this is a film worth having? I'm not sure. I'm
How
not.
did it gross? Did it do well? Like,
Yeah, actually, it did perfectly well. It grossed 2 times as much as it cost. So it cost 19 million to make, and it grossed 59 million worldwide, so about 25 US, 25 and change world outside markets. So yeah, it makes 2 times as much as it cost. It does perfectly fine, which is why it gets greenlit for a sequel and a couple of television show.
sure.
Um, but it's just I don't understand why people have any kind of reverence for this because I do like camp. You like camp, and there's like
Yeah.
cute camp, but this didn't have any kind of logical consistency. Like you can tell me you can give me bad sci-fi as long as it has a level of consistency, and this just has ah.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
I don't think that this is a fault of any of the acting with the exception of the 2 main characters. I don't think that Tarantino and I don't think that Clooney did a very good job, and I think that both of them should have been cast as someone else.
Yeah, I mean, in the first half, I thought Tarantino did a decent job. Like, he was selling the character for
Mhm.
sure. But yeah, I mean, everybody else did the acting was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, they did the best that they could. I think Juliette Lewis did a pretty good job.
Like, the second half of this movie, you don't need good actors. Like,
No, you're right, you don't actually need any decent actors, but they're there. There are Oscar winners there for some reason. Su Fucking sucks. And I do blame the writing. I feel like this is Tarantino, and I wanted better writing in the back end. I wanted something pithier than what we got.
I don't know that the director goes away with clean hands on this one either, because I just feel like there were some pacing choices that were off.
And again, if we're shooting this style like El Mariachi, like, hold on. Oh, fuck me. Okay. El Mariachi is shot on a $7,000 budget. You should
Yep.
not be using the film techniques you used on El Mariachi to get coverage on a $19 million
$19
fucking
million
film.
movie. My gosh.
It's like every time I learn out something new, I'm like, "Guys, I don't care if you directed Sin City. Get your shit together." Like, I guess Spy Kids 2 is the one you wanna go for if you wanna talk about his movies that are not offensive.
Yeah,
Alright, so, as as we kind of approach the end here, my questions are, did you like this film?
no, I did not.
No.
I did not like this film. I don't know that I have spent this much time shitting on a film that I watched to completion, like, and I am shocked. I am shocked because I am the target audience for this film, and
I have to say, everyone that I have told that I did not like this film is shooketh. And they literally said, "I didn't think I was betting on anything here. I would have put $100 down that I thought this movie was made for you."
right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, the female representation is terrible. They could
Yeah.
have done something where they made it a fact that all the women in the club were vampires, and so they were using shitty men, and that was like but they didn't wind up doing that either,
Mm,
and then you like, I wanted to excuse the fact that all the women in the entire movie, except for Juliette Lewis, were victims or vampires, but, like,
mm.
the film didn't.
I but I wasn't going in with those expectations. A Tarantino movie from '96. We're not getting a feminist, like, piece of work here.
Yeah,
Like,
totally. But when
yeah.
I think about horror movies that I like, I tend to not like movies that are this much geared toward a male audience, which is my
Mm,
fear going in. My fear going in was that this was going to probably hit better if I was 13 and a boy. You know, because even the nudity is milk toast. Like, you
yeah,
Salma Hayek
for real. We were promised pussy, pussy, pussy.
she was not taking shit off for this. On a scale of 1 to 5, what star would you give it?
Ugh, maybe 2. The first half the first half was solid. The first half was compelling.
And Roger Ebert says the same thing. He's like, "I like the first half so much, I wanna be like, I like this movie, but the second half is not even good in a camp way," and it just
Mm,
like, I think what he said I love the last line of his review, which was, "The good things in this movie, especially some of the dialogue, are so much better than the rest that you wish Rodriguez and Tarantino had tried to triumph over this material, instead of merely delivering it. It's a pro job, but these guys can do better."
mm,
And it's
yeah,
like it's almost like I want them to because I hold them to a higher standard. So I do
yeah.
feel like it's a
We
two-star movie.
expected more of you.
Yeah, I'm not mad, I'm
I'm just
disappointed.
disappointed.
And when you go on IMDb, it's 7.2 out of 10. If you go on Letterboxd, it's 3.5 stars is the average, and I'm like, "Okay."
How do people rationalize that? Is it just that you don't get it? Like, or like,
Majority of them saw it without knowing that it was a vampire in the back
you
end.
know, again, I really think that if that had been my viewing experience,
Yeah,
it probably would have bumped up closer to 3 stars,
yeah.
because pulling that bait and switch would have been entertaining enough that I would've spent the second half still being like, "Oh my I can't believe this movie took this turn." But, like, yeah, going into it knowing might have ruined it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going into it knowing feels like I got a push dice, the dice that you get when a color goes over from one to the other, and they're just like it's just the extra because it's the plastic still in the machine, but somebody
Mhm.
wants you to be like, "Look at this cool color swirl," and you're like, "It's just garbage. It's just mushed together." Would you recommend this movie to other people?
No,
Oh.
no,
No.
not and, like, I'm trying to think if there was, like, a certain type of person.
No.
I don't know that I'd be having a like, I don't I don't think so.
Like, my friend said that this movie stands out because it is an interesting version of the vampire stories where the vampires are more bestial, and I do like that they use the, like, ichor, the blood replacement. Ichor is what you would expect there to be blood in a god, so it's usually green or something,
Yeah.
and so you're like, "Oh, so these vampires are not quite what they're trying to develop a new genre." But the only reason the blood is green in this movie
Yeah.
is because they wanted to not get into so much trouble with the censors.
Yeah.
It wasn't, like,
Yeah.
really an interesting decision. So, like,
Yeah.
a lot
Mhm.
of the choices I feel like people are trying to add meaning
Yes, they're trying to add stuff that's not there.
because, like you keep saying, they didn't think about it, so they're making us think about it.
Yes. Yeah, for real.
I can't think of a single person to recommend this movie to. I can't.
Mm-mm.
I there
Mm-mm.
are people I know who've seen it who liked it, and I'm like, "Cool," but I can't think of a single person to tell to watch this movie. There's
Yeah.
so many other great vampire stories out there that you could go watch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's so many other better campy horror movies. There's so many better Tarantino movies, like,
Mhm. If you could pick one other Tarantino movie and one other campy movie to tell someone to watch instead, what would it be?
Evil Dead and, uh, probably Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs. It's always Reservoir Dogs for
It's
me.
always Reservoir
True
Dogs.
Romance is a good choice as well, even though it's
Sure, yeah.
not directed
Mhm,
by him.
mhm.
I also think Death Becomes Her is
Oh,
a fun campy one that people
yeah.
forget about.
Mhm.
I haven't seen that in a while. I really wanna
Yeah,
rewatch that.
I bet. That would be a great rewatch, yeah.
And, any final thoughts before we go? Anything we didn't cover? Anything you wanna talk about? Anything at all?
No, that was a ride. I can't believe it I've finally seen this movie. Um, don't know don't know that I'm any better for it, but it certainly closes a chapter in my life there. So,
I wouldn't have watched it any other way. This is the perfect way to have watched it, and considering I kinda had to do it for Movie Night Extravaganza, if I had not had this to save it, I would have
oh,
had a horrible time and been facing up against, like, I don't know what to say to anyone about how I feel.
it's so funny that we both feel exactly the same way. Like,
Yeah,
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 when you have all these friends that are like, "No, I liked it."
I
What
know.
does Nick think about it?
He doesn't think that it's very interesting either. He's kind of just like, "Oh, I think I kinda saved you guys from seeing a shitty movie. I mean, if you wanna watch it, you can."
Huh, alright.
Yeah. He remembered even as, like, a teenage boy, I mean, he was probably so if I was 11, he was, like, 17, 18.
Yeah, he was like, so yeah.
He was just kinda like, "Meh,"
Yeah,
and he didn't know the vampires were coming.
yeah.
It was just like, "Yeah, it's a movie, you can watch it. You have time." I mean, there's stuff on Tubi that I'm sure I have definitely seen worse movies.
Wait, I just thought of another campy movie I'd recommend to
Yeah?
people. The Gate.
Oh, dear viewer, I am shook. I am sent backwards with joy. That is the best movie ever. Steven Dorff, I
Yeah.
love you. He's so young and so perfect. Actually, I told Scott about our love of The Gate recently, and him and his friend literally tried to do The Gate when they were younger. 'Cause they were the kids in the movie.
100% tracks, like, that checks out. I believe that story.
And the camp in that, the, like, break apart monster, even though the special
Mhm.
effects are still dated, like, that is a great example of still holding up, still being very funny.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So that's the bow to put on this. If you've listened to all of this and you have not yet seen Dusk Till Dawn, switch it out. Watch The
Watch
Gate instead, and
the
you will
gate
have
instead.
a better night. All right, Kristen, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and doing this with me because it is the perfect bookend to this experience that we have. And I didn't even remember the movie before, so that makes it all the
Yeah.
like fuller and more beautiful. And now every time I watch 12 Monkeys, I get to think of this movie. Welcome to Corrections and Omissions. This is the part of the show where we talk about stuff that we might have said wrong, or really more often than not, I expound on something that was really interesting, but we didn't dive deep into during the show. That during my research, either after the show or in between the show, I found out more information and I wanted to share it with you. So let's just hit the ground completely running with our very first question. Our first correction is maybe more of an omission or a deeper dive. It's technically right, not technically wrong. I did say in part one that I thought the first film to make a really big splash at the Oscars that was a horror film was Silence of the Lambs. And that's not wrong, it is true, but there's a lot more going into that, kind of coming up to that. And I thought I'd share that kind of information with you. I found it to be pretty fascinating. But if you listen to the show, you do know that I have like an Oscar trivia maybe problem. Um, in a cinematic landscape that is often dominated by drama and romance, horror films have historically struggled to gain recognition at the Academy Awards. The question of which horror film first made a significant impact at the Oscars brings to light a rich history of genre evolution. The trail was blazed by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1932, where Frederick March took home the Best Actor Oscar for his transformative performance. Now, this win is shared with Wallace Beery due to close voting rules and marked a noteworthy moment in Oscar history, though it would take decades for horror to truly carve its niche in the top categories. Fast forward to 1960, when Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho shook the industry with four major nominations, including Best Director for Alfred Hitchcock himself and Best Supporting Actress for Janet Leigh. While it didn't secure a win, Psycho showcased horror's potential for rich storytelling, elevating its status among critics and within the Academy. The genre finally received its due recognition in 1973 with Exorcist, which earned 10 nominations, including Best Picture, and won 2 awards for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound. This pivotal moment set the stage for the groundbreaking success of Silence of the Lambs in 1992, which made history by sweeping the 5 major categories. That's Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay. This is an unprecedented achievement and not only marks a high point for horror, but also solidifies its place in Oscar lore. Since then, while films like Get Out and Black Swan have earned prestigious nominations, Silence of the Lambs remains the only horror film to have won Best Picture. And this sets a gold standard that continues to challenge the genre's recognition at the Oscars. The most recent horror film to achieve a nomination was The Lighthouse in 2019, which received acclaim for its cinematography but did not win. Prior to that, Get Out garnered widespread critical acclaim, winning Best Original Screenplay and securing nominations in several top categories. Despite these strides, horror films still face an uphill battle in earning recognition for their artistic merits, especially in top categories. Actors like Toni Collette in Hereditary and Lupita Nyong'o in Us have delivered powerful performances but were overlooked in major nominations. This fuels an ongoing discussion about the Academy's hesitance to fully embrace the genre. Interestingly enough, though, in 2019, the film Parasite won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best International Feature, yet it is primarily classified as a dark social thriller rather than pure horror. Directed by Bong Joon-ho, Parasite blends elements of horror with social commentary, pushing genre boundaries and resonating with both audiences and critics. While its success has inspired hope among horror enthusiasts that the Academy may expand its definition to Oscar-worthy storytelling, films categorized strictly as horror still face significant challenges in achieving top honors. As the conversation around horror films and their place in Oscar history continues, one thing remains clear. The genre's journey from the shadows to the spotlight is far from over. In part one, my sister wasn't sure if they had seen The X-Files or Silence of the Lambs first, and it wasn't quite clear if they had been more influenced by Silence of the Lambs to watch X-Files or by X-Files to watch Silence of the Lambs and how that affected their entire life. Silence of the Lambs came out on February 14th of 1991, and The X-Files premiered in September 10th of 1993. Now, I distinctly know that we watched episode Home together with my grandmother, and that came out on October 11th of 1996. So 1996 was a crazy year for me and my sibling. We should not had been watching any of this. Like, ugh. But, Grandma really loved the X-Files, and her English was a little shaky, so it was Benny Hill and the X-Files, and I didn't really like Benny Hill either, so if my sister and I were gonna hang out with her, we were gonna be watching this. And the last correction that we have for today is actually gonna be just another deep dive. This one we didn't really have too many corrections and omissions for, which is really kinda awesome, like, good stuff all around on this particular episode. Not too many fumbles, in my opinion. Although, if you caught us fumbling something, throw it into the comments and I'll throw it into my next corrections. This was about the Blockbuster videos. I had mentioned that I'd found out how long a Blockbuster would keep the label new on something, and it is 3 months. And it's kind of interesting as to why it's 3 months. It's 3 months because that's how long a film at the time would have had its theatrical release. That's how long studios were prioritizing keeping a film in theaters in the 90s before they were going to release it to home box office, which is hilarious because right now it's on average 31 days. 1 month. That's less than half what we experienced at the time. So to mirror that, blockbusters would have a theatrical release theory where they would also have it on their shelves for 3 months. Of course, there are going to be exceptions to this. If a movie was very popular, it would have been held longer than that. If it was very difficult to get it onto VOD, it would take even longer as well. So the space between could have been longer than that. But the period in time in which a blockbuster normally kept that label on there was 3 months. Also thought it was kind of interesting. I stopped to think like, summer blockbuster, when was that first term used? I mean, obviously it was used because these were movies that in the 30s and 40s got people out of the heat because there was air conditioning. It was cool inside the theater. It needed to be cool, otherwise the machines weren't going to run. Well, I looked it up, and it actually has to do with Time magazine. Both times it was Time magazine, because the word blockbuster etymologically refers to an aerial assault done by the Allied forces during the Second World War that was strong enough to blow up an entire block, hence a blockbuster. Now, that was coined by Time magazine in an article that appeared in November 29th of 1942. Well, fast forward a year to May 1943, and Time uses the word that they created to describe a movie. It was the film adaptation of former Ambassador Joseph E. Davis' best-selling Mission to Moscow. They wanted to say that it was audacious and extreme and is explosive as a blockbuster. It's not shortly after that that the term starts to get to be used to describe any kind of commercially successful film. That happens in the 30s and 40s, but the term summer blockbuster doesn't happen until the 70s and is because of the film Jaws. The film Jaws proves that you can set a specific time to release your movie and it will do better than if you just release it whenever. So, two really kind of side deeper dives for you to think about. And that's it for us right now. That was not too many corrections this time. And that's it for the show. Thank you so much for staying till the very end and getting all of the information, all of the trivia, all of the experience. I know this one's a little bit different than usual because we don't usually hate something so much on this show. I wouldn't hate. We usually don't yuck, a yum. So hard. So if you are a From Dusk Till Dawn fan, please do not take deep personal offense. I think it is very, very crucial to understanding that if you didn't watch this movie without knowing that there are vampires in the second half, it's not as fun. The genre shift surprise is really clutch to this. Although, tune into the Abigail episode for Movie Night Extravaganza, where we discuss how you do, in fact, know that for Abigail, and yet it still totally works. Here, it just didn't. And even with the cute story as to why we haven't seen it and all of that leading up to it, it just wasn't the right kind of movie for either of us. So if it is the right kind of movie for you, all the more joy to you. That is why I did not go on the Movie Night Extravaganza episode where they loved on this movie. I didn't want to harsh anyone's vibe or be the wet blanket or make it about why I didn't like it. That's this show, and now you know. That's why I didn't like it. If you like this movie and you want to hear people talk about liking it, go into the liner notes and I'll include the link to that episode. And you can see Conan Neutron, Forrest Miller, and Christina Oakes just love this movie hard. And I'm like, I'm so glad for them. Again, quick reminders. We're going to have Adam McKay on Movie Night Extravaganza on the 15th. That's amazing. The next one's going to have Harry Marks doing a Bogart film. That's amazing. Conan's going to be gone for the one after that, which is less amazing. We'll be doing Pearl with Lawrence Renard. That's super amazing. High highs, low lows. And also, I will be on the Goodwill Podcasting podcast talking about Tom Hanks for the first time with those guys. I'm really excited. I think they have a lot of great stuff to say, and I'm more than honored to be included in any conversation that they're having. Next episode for us, though, very exciting. We're going to get Bonnie Burton, who you might have seen on some of our vampire episodes this month for Movie Night Extravaganza, to watch a film that she has refused to watch for forever, despite very much loving the source material, which is kind of the reason why she's like, maybe I shouldn't engage. Bonnie Burton will be watching Interview with a Vampire. And we're going to leave the door open for her to full hate if she wants to, because you know what? She expects to fully hate it. But I'm really happy that she's willing to give it a chance and see. Maybe there's things around the edges. Maybe there are performances that she can hold on to and say, you know what, as a whole, I can appreciate that. And maybe just maybe, she'll have to like Tom Cruise just a little bit. You'll have to tune into that and see how it goes. I haven't taped it yet, so I don't even know, but I am so excited. Thank you again for staying to the end, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.